I should start this episode with a content warning. As you can tell from the title, we are talking about suicide. So if for any reason this is a particularly raw topic for you that might trigger a strong emotional response, then maybe this is one that you should skip. But I also want to say that if you can, maybe we should sit with our discomfort and become a bit triggered so that we jolt it into action. Actual action. Not just posting not one more vet on our social media profiles, but actually doing something. I do also realize that, emotions aside, that suicide is not something we really like to talk about or listen to. I know I don't. Because, well, it's not exactly an uplifting topic. But this is really our problem as a community to face up to and find solutions for. And I believe that there are the seeds of solutions in this, what is ultimately quite an optimistic conversation with Kat and Alena. So who are Kat and Alena? Dr. Kat Williams and Dr. Alena Gadoury are the co-founders and directors of VetHerd, an industry-based suicide prevention program for the vet profession. You'll find out all about it in this discussion. Dr. Kat has worked as a small animal general practitioner and in administration within specialty and emergency teams. Her own lived experience of mental health conditions and suicide has given her a passion for veterinary well-being. Kat has a bachelor degree in psychological science and has presented to the profession on the practical application of psychology for veterinary staff. Dr. Alena Gadoury has a very diverse career ranging from human to animal medicine, business, training, and research. She obtained a Bachelor of Nursing in 2006, after which she worked as a registered nurse in adult mental health and pediatrics. Then, in 2013, she got herself a vet degree and has since worked in small, mixed, and emergency settings. Like Kat, her own experiences in the profession has led her to focus on suicide prevention and intervention. Alena is also about to start a PhD where she is undertaking research into suicide in Australian veterinarians. Together, Kat and Alena are striving to build and develop the skills of suicide prevention in the individuals in our profession. That's you, and in the veterinary community collectively. Now, before we jump in, I want to underline a concept that's stuck with me from what we discussed in this episode. You will hear Kat and Alena talk about a safety net, which I actually really like as a metaphor. When you think of a safety net, you immediately think of acrobats or maybe firemen, right? So people doing difficult high-skill tasks in a situation where a slip can be fatal. And regardless of how well prepared these people are and how carefully they do their thing, stuff happens. Life happens. And sometimes you do slip. Less than a month after recording this, I got the news that a really good friend from vet school days had committed suicide. Now, I wish I could say that that's a first for me. It's not. But this one really hurt. She was, to our community of friends, a classmate and a housemate and a best friend and a joy of a human being. The shockwaves of how could this have happened spread far and wide across the veterinary community. Our friend, when we knew her, was resilience and happiness encapsulated. She'd be the one you'd call when you were having a bad day. And that's why I want to underline that concept of a safety net and why I think that this work that Kat and Alena are doing is so important. Because the sad reality is that we can work on the skills of the individual, the acrobat or the fireman or the vet, but we can't predict what life will throw at us. And we can't always predict who's going to be at risk next. But what we can do is to equip ourselves, all of us, to be that safety net. I've since learned that our friend had support. She had people who knew, who cared, who tried, who loved, who fought with her. We're not going to save everyone. But you might save someone. And that someone could be someone close to you. It could even be you. Okay, let's get into it with Kat and Alena. So tell us about the baby VetHerd. What's its goal when it grows up?
Yeah, well, we've been talking about
And why VetHerd?
this.
Sorry, why the VetHerd? Is it HERD, like a herd of cows?
So for listeners, it's one word, VetHerd, and it's a capital VET, and then capital HERD. So herd like a herd of animals. I would happily give that to you, Alena.
Yeah, well, we're going back and forth between, what are we going to call ourselves and everything. And then both of us actually independently wrote down VetHerd.
No ways.
Yeah. And so it was this beautiful thing because it was like, okay, why did you write it down? And it was in line with each other. It was all about picturing that the elephants that herd around to protect, their young, or the cows that herd around. And then it grows into this, herd immunity and protecting each other, and how we can create this community because it's not about Kat and Alena rolling out VetHerd. It's about let's champion and get all the different sectors to protect itself, right?
So that's that network that you talked about right at the beginning of herd immunity.
Yeah, so the vision for VetHerd is absolutely, as Alena was saying, is about community. So it's the power of the collective to make a difference. And we can't do it on our own. We have no intention of doing it on our own. It's about the community rallying together for each other. And also, we don't want this to be our baby. We want this to be the industry. We've been following a program, the model of a program called Mates in Construction, because what Mates in Construction is that they have quite high rates of suicide as well. They lose construction worker to suicide every second day.
Is this Australia specific or global, or Australia specific?
So every second day, a construction worker is dying by suicide. It's 190 on average per year. And so as an industry, they recognize this is not okay. We need to do something. So what they then did was employers and unions working together, they invested in a study. It's about working out where we are and what are the recommendations, like what do we do? And then born out of that study, they invested $400,000 to create a program. And so that was Mates in Construction. And I feel like I'm not going to do it service explaining what Mates in Construction is. But from my understanding of what it is, it's a program that is about capacity building for the community, the construction industry. It's about empowering workers to be able to support each other, to have the confidence and the skills to keep each other safe from suicide. There's education awareness, and there's a strong research foundation as well. They're very much about basing things on research and evaluating programs. So I would encourage listeners to look out for the Mates in Construction logo. It's a circle. Within the circle, there's silhouettes of 4 workers. They're hard hats. And that's their symbol. That's Mates in Construction. That's their industry's suicide prevention program. It's for the industry, by the industry. And so Alena and I want to create an equivalent for our industry. Same but different. We have been fortunate enough to be mentored by Jorgen Gulstrup and John Brady, who were one of the first 2 people to help birth Mates in Construction. And so we see ourselves as midwives as well. It's not our baby, it's the industry's baby, but we're helping to deliver it. We're facilitating this because we really need the industry to own this movement. We need everyone. We need staff, we need employers, we need other industry peak bodies to come on this movement with us.
I was unaware of those statistics for the construction profession. I think very much like when people hear about vets, they're like, what? I thought you guys are so happy. Oh. But you mentioned there that they have a fair amount of data around it. Do we have data in vet? Because we talk about it a lot in social networks and platforms and at conferences and stuff. And it's become almost clickbaity in the media as well. Oh, vets and suicide numbers and burnout and stuff. But I often do wonder, is it really? I know it's bad because I've personal and I know everybody has a direct experience. But what is this? Because there's the commonly thrown around number 4 times the average of the general population. And how bad is it?
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you said that 4 times because that's the crux of the problem in the industry right now is the data is so old. So when you look at it, Jones-Ferner et al., I think it was published in 2008. They did a fabulous study looking at Australian vets that died by suicide. But then the years that they were looking at was between 1990 and 2002. Okay? And so that paper was published in 2008. And those vets were within Victoria and WA. Okay, so that's where that 3.8 and 4 times actually comes from, was data from almost, 2 decades ago.
And that was
right?
3.8 to 4 times the the
General-
average for
yeah,
the
the
general
general
population. So
population.
if in any other profession.
Yeah.
Okay.
Milner et al. In 2015 did a more updated study looking at Australian vets that have died by suicide. Looking at the standard mortality rate, they did find that that the vets had a higher rate than the general population. But that was looking at data between 2001 to 2012, I believe.
Okay.
Right? So again, nothing has been published since on the prevalence rates. And so if you look, like we're talking about a decade or 2 decades ago, a heck of a lot has happened in the vet world within that time frame. Yes, we are desperate for
So we
new
don't know.
data.
So is it better?
No.
Don't know.
It's speculated to be worse.
Really?
Yeah. But we don't know. We need numbers. And so that the one thing that Kat and I are really trying to rally for as well is to be a part of the research. And if we can get the current situation, that's at least updated, right? To say, okay, where are we at? And then what are we going to do going forward?
Okay. And that's Australian data. Is there data for other countries? Do we know?
Yeah, so they're like without listing off just the prevalence rates, but De Silva et al. 2023 just did a recent literature review, and they looked at the data that does exist, and so they have said yes, we are above the general population globally. Yes, yeah. And Platt in 2010 did verify that as well with their systemic review. The data is there to say, okay, with what we do know, we are above the general population.
So there's a problem.
But whereabouts are we? Yes, there's a problem. Regardless, there's a problem.
That's the next question then is, again, I've heard 100 theories and we all have opinions on why the problem exists, why more for vets. Is there any authoritative information on why it is more of a problem for vets? Do you know?
That's a great question. And it's really hard to answer because it's so complex. And so when you actually look at the data, people have tried to look at, what are the factors contributing to our career? And you look at the nature of the career itself. Like you said earlier, we deal with trauma. We deal with euthanizing animals. There's a care-killing complex or paradox that happens with that. There is dealing with people with grief and loss, right? And if we're not equipped to do that within our profession in the sense of we don't learn how to do that, that's psychology, right? That is a whole different profession in itself. There is providing care and not wanting to tell people that you're struggling because you are actually a caregiver. And so even within that, like we're going down a rabbit hole now where it's now looking at the shame and guilt or not even identifying that you might be not doing well within your profession. And so it becomes really complex and there's no easy way to answer it. And I think that's what's really hard with the research is there's no real way to look at a list of factors that we need to address to make it all better. But what we can see is we can see trends. We do know that people with anxiety, depression have a higher risk of suicide or thoughts of suicide, right? We do know that euthanasia can alter your view of death. We do know that we have means of euthanasia. And so looking at almost what we were talking about earlier, those occupational hazards or stressors, euthanasia being one of them. So Helene has actually been exploring that over in Norway. And what she actually did find was there was a positive correlation between euthanizing 5 or more animals per week and an individual link to serious suicidal thoughts.
Really?
Yeah. Many factors play into that, though. Is it those people that are working more frequently are seeing more euthanasia? Yeah. Is it actually the situation of euthanasia itself? Having to deliver it, but then also deal with the parent or owner that is grieving? Is it, are you feeling overworked and you're not in a good headspace and now you're actually having to deliver this and with the care-killing paradox, you've got your own feelings. Do we not know? Have we not learned enough about when is it the dog or cat or animal's time kind of thing?
I haven't heard the phrase care killing. It's good. It's when you describe the multifactorial things, and when I've thought about, because I think about it a lot as well. Again, because my statistics of people I know is actually really shocking. It's shocking. So I think about it a lot, and when you describe the multifactorial things now, it's almost comical. You almost want to say, yeah, let's design. If somebody said to you, let's design a career that's going to make it most likely for you to be able to commit suicide successfully, you can't actually design it much better. You say, let's choose a bunch of people who are high performers, perfectionists, often hard on ourselves as a general rule.
Yeah.
And then we put you in a job that's really stressful and where they're going to question your integrity.
Yeah.
And you have high integrity. And we make you do it a lot. And then we make you care kill all the time. And we make you really good at it so that you learn that when things get really hard, there is a solution at the end of it.
Yeah.
And then we say, and now you know how to do it really well. And the solution is right there in the safe. Just go over. Just go get it. When things get really hard, you have the answer.
Yeah.
And I often personally wonder about that last step, even just that. I read I think it was Malcolm Gladwell in one of his books. He talks about a phenomenon that happened in the UK when they installed piped gas, so gas ovens,
Yep.
lethal gas, and the suicide rate in housewives skyrocketed. They weren't suddenly more depressed or had more thoughts of suicide. They just had a really clean and easy means.
Yeah.
I go, well, that's what we have. I think a lot of, because it's not, I don't think our profession is necessarily harder or more stressful than many other professions. I have many friends and I hear their job and I go, ooh, my job's not that bad actually. But what they lack is that, as you say, that familiar, nobody's more familiar with death than us. I don't know, it is so multifactorial and it's just all that. And then the end of that story, then they changed the formulation of the gas. I can't remember what they did. And it dropped.
Yeah.
It was as simple as that, just to take away the means.
Well, and I think like you bring up a really strong point. So in Milner's study that she did, 80% was death by lethobar. It's something familiar with us. We know how to use it. We can predict what's going to happen when using it. So I'm just going to read a quick little thing from Dallam's work, and it touches upon that. And it says, in a recent study, found that among veterinarians with suicidal ideation in the past week, easy access to lethal medication in the workplace was associated with a 6-fold increase in their perceived likelihood of future suicide attempt compared to those locking the lethal medication during business hours.
Yeah, because I just feel like many of us, I don't say just vets, you might have a horrible day.
Yeah.
You might have that one horrible day, but tomorrow you feel better.
Yeah.
But if on that horrible day, then it's just so easy.
I know in Canada, we would actually write down the amount we are delivering to each animal. In saying that, though, people can still pocket it and everything. Yeah. And that's I think, where Kat and I see the value of the Living Works Assist training and becoming this caregiver. Because when you're seeing the colleagues that you're just suspicious that they're not doing okay, whether it's yourself or somebody that you know that can ask that question, that feels safe to ask that question, we need to be asking that question.
Yeah, and that's what I want to come to. So again, we talked about that's a practical aspect, but ideally what we want is people to not get near there or not get to the point where it becomes an option even. And I feel like that's where your work is going to come in, is to say that's a practical thing to deal with, but how do we help people who have ideation, who identify, first of all, and help them? Is that your work? Is that what Living Works and Mates and everything's about?
Yeah, that's right. So where we at, it's the solution is so multifactorial and layered. And so I guess the question is, where do we come in the big picture? And so as VetHerd delivering Living Works training, we see ourselves as helping to intervene when someone is experiencing thoughts of suicide. So there's heaps of stuff to prevent them ever getting to that stage. And there's important work being done. For example, Sophie's Legacy and Flynn's Walk. However, we're not going to, because suicide is so multifactorial itself, there's no, I don't believe we can, 100%.
No. You can't remove the stresses of the job that might push you towards that.
That's right. And so I think there will always be thoughts of suicide in a population. And so we're at the stage where we're saying, okay, if that's going to happen, people will have thoughts of suicide in our profession. how can the people around them intervene? How do we then support them? How do we check in with them, like you said, identify, and then support them to safety?
Yeah. Okay. So how?
Well, one way is certainly asking the question. We've got to ask the question. And that's one thing that, we obviously...
That's a big... the reason I pull his face is I told you I did that, the Living Works, the online, it's like a couple of hours or something, a little course many years ago. And it's confronting because part of the training is to say to somebody, hey, listen, are you having suicidal thoughts? Are you thinking about taking your own life? Which, that's a big question to ask. Like it's almost insult. You feel like you're going to insult because what do they say? No. And they're like, fuck, dude, no.
Yeah.
But then at least I asked. But please help me with this.
Can I run you firstly through the ASIST model?
Okay, go, please.
And then we'll come back to the idea of asking directly.
Yes.
So basically the ASIST model takes you through 3 stages of supporting someone with thoughts of suicide. And there's 6 components to that. So the first is about invitations. So we talk about the signs we might see in our colleagues. It can be words that they're using. It can be behaviours that you're noticing. It can be physical things, like if they're looking a little dishevelled. We talk about all of those things as invitations to check in with them and to see what's going on for them. So use that invitation. Just might strike up a conversation. Alena, you're not looking quite like yourself today. What's going on? And then if she, starts to talk and there's things more concerning and it's flagging, a bit of a red flag for me, hey, look, I think suicide might be on the cards here. Yeah. The next step is then to ask directly. Alena, when people say things like this, sometimes they have thoughts about suicide. They're thinking about killing themselves. I just wanted to ask you, is that perhaps where you're at right now?
On a scale of 1 to 10. Like 10 being... where are we on the scale?
That's one way of doing it.
I want to go back to the first step conversation. So that feels like it goes back to the other big campaign that I love is the Are You Okay thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we in Australia, for foreign listeners, we have the How You Going greeting. How you going?
Yeah.
But it's not genuinely a question. It's just like saying hello.
Yeah.
But actually saying, hey, how are you? And we also, everybody says casually, how are you? Good. And we move on.
Yeah.
But actually, when you see somebody... And that's something I've gotten better at over the years is to say, are you actually okay? You seem, as you say, tell them why you're concerned.
Yeah.
But then to differentiate, have you got clues for us? Because then it's easy when they say, oh yeah, I've had a shitty night's sleep. The baby's keeping me awake or I'm trying to study or 100 reasons. And then it's easy to say, okay, cool, give me a shout if you need anything. But what are other warning signs then, things that they say there that will make you pay attention a little bit more?
Yeah. So, do you want to take it, Alena?
Oh, I was just going to say, in the model, you do learn about just little subtle things, Kat had said, but some of the things could be just, I can't do it anymore. Okay.
Yeah, gotcha.
What does that mean?
Existential crisis type responses, not...
But then would you jump on that right away? Would you say, okay, are you thinking about killing yourself? Or would you explore that a little bit more to say, what do you mean about that? What does that mean to you? You can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Okay. That helps.
Yeah, I agree with you, Alena. Exploring those invitations, because they might not always be about suicide, but it's always worth exploring. And so to say a few more phrases that might make you think, okay, I think this is about suicide, is I just can't do it anymore. I'm done. I can't see a way out. There's no hope. So that's when you start exploring even more. What do you mean by that? At the same time, I had a friend where I explored an invitation and it turned out not to be about suicide. And the real benefit of that is that I felt good that I asked, found out it wasn't, great outcome, but it also means I didn't miss it. Yeah. So that particular friend, they were giving away selling all their furniture on Facebook Marketplace. And, it can be a sign that they're getting ready to leave. But I said, there's a 99% chance he just wants to get rid of his furniture. I just sat there thinking, if it is something more, I don't want to miss this. Yeah. I don't want to hear about his death and know that I missed an invitation to talk about suicide. So I just messaged him, say, hey, turns out all your Facebook Marketplace posts are popping up on my feed. How are you going? And yeah, he's great. Turns out he was selling stuff. He's gone overseas for a short stint. And that was great. And it gave me an opportunity to connect. I hadn't talked to him for a long while and it was great. And so, yeah, I would encourage people that invitations, so those signs that you see might not always actually be about suicide, but it's worth checking out.
And that's what I like about your training and what you're trying to do with the herd immunity thing, because that somebody selling their stuff on Facebook to me would be nothing. But once you talk about these things and you go through a training program, you become, the radar goes out, right?
Yes.
You put the antennas out there. And if everybody, as you say, if it's just Cat doing all this by herself, you're not going to catch everybody.
No.
But if you have an army of people who are 10% as astute as you and as alert to other people's, to what's happening to them, then the odds of picking something up, it's such a cool program. I like it.
Absolutely.
And I think too, the important thing to highlight is, so people could say, I just don't want to live anymore, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to kill myself. And so it's uncomfortable. It is, but it's learning to just say, okay, what does that mean to you? And at that point could say something like, hey, Kat, you just said that, and I'm feeling a bit alarmed about that. Does that mean you're planning on killing yourself, right? And really confirming that suicide is what we're actually talking about, because some people might not want to be here, but aren't going to do anything to hurt themselves.
And then that's the scary thing is, and then maybe that's why we're so scared of asking the question. You don't want to embarrass yourself, but listening to you talk about it, that's actually silly, because if nothing else, you're going to show somebody that you care enough to ask a brave question. So there's not really no harm in it. But I suppose the scary thing is, what if they say yes? What if they say yes, but actually I have been thinking about it. They're like, oh shit, now what do? I don't know how to deal with this.
Yeah. So the next step in the ASIST model, so it's first explore those invitations. Yeah. And then if there's enough exploring that leads you to think, hey, this actually might be a bit about suicide, is to ask the question directly. Are you having thoughts of suicide? Or, there's many ways that you can ask it in a way that feels comfortable to you. And if they say yes, we then move into the next phase of hearing their story. So tell me more about that. What's going on for you? What does that mean for you? And so listening to what they've been through. What does suicide mean for them? Why are they thinking this? What have they recently experienced, and what's happening for them? So really sitting with them in that space and listening to them and their needs. And within that, hearing their story, we want to find what Living Works, the training calls turning points. So little glimmers of life, of reasons to live. So with turning points, it's important to know that as the caregivers, we are absolutely not manufacturing reasons to live for them. We are listening for glimmers of hope that they have, whether it's seeing a family that they really care for, or something in the future that they're still hoping for, or even if they're just uncertain about suicide, that can still be a turning point that actually, hey, there's life in them that's speaking. They do still want to live. And our roles as ASIST caregivers is we help shine the spotlight on that and say, oh, it sounds like this might be something that is a reason for you to live. Like, you're listening to their story and then you're listening out for turning points.
When you're listening for those turning points, it could be as simple as, yeah, but, and it's okay.
So does that work? Because a part of me goes, okay, if somebody's that emotional, is me trying to logic them out of it going to help at all? If I say, I don't think you should consider it, because what about your kids, dude? Or listen,
this is where we really encourage people to actually take the course, because we can't get through, doing it any justice within this time frame. The next stage of the model, though, would be to explore their story and listen for those turning points. And then you move through the model to then say, okay, if you hear these turning points, okay, then let's create a plan of safety, but it's not driven by you at all. It's driven by them. And so it's exploring what they have, who they can talk with, who we can involve, because it's not just that person. And so I think what happens with asking, or people, one of the inhibiting factors I think sometimes happens is because then you feel like you have to do it all, and it all of a sudden becomes yours to then figure out, right? And the beautiful thing about the model is it really says, no, okay, we're a community. You've got to involve other people, because it's not going to be you figuring out the plan, putting that person through therapy or anything.
Okay. So it's a skill that you can learn. And I've listening to your conversation today makes me feel like you should learn. I asked in the beginning, where does our responsibility stop? But it's a work health and safety issue. Just like we have to do radiology safety training, or if you work with chemotherapeutics, exactly that sort of stuff. That's why we need to do a course.
Well, it's an insertional model. And so you insert yourself, get to a place where you can keep them safe for now, and then you exit out of it. And they continue. And looking at actually how the model's set out, each and every point on that page has a reason. And it's beautiful because then it just loops around. Once that model's done, the line, which is the person, continues because you've done your bit, and then they do theirs.
And I like what you said right in the beginning, Kat, about you don't need to swim by reading a book. I love Seth Godin. He uses the bicycle. You don't ride a bike by reading a book.
Oh, I see.
And again, this is why you need the training, because it's like consultation training. That's why there are workshops now for veterinarians to get better at having conversations in consults. And it's one of those important conversations that you may need to have one day and actually practicing it. Because, and I noted it when I did that course years ago, just the online one. Yeah. Part of the online course was they make you turn on your camera and ask your computer, have a pretend conversation. Yeah. Or they had an actor or something like that. And you have to ask them, are you thinking of taking your own life? And I fucking squirmed. It was me and my computer. But by the 10th time you do it, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, really done. Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about the course itself. It's so practical based. You practice and you practice and you practice. Yeah.
That's so cool. So where do we go? Are you guys up and running now? If somebody's listening to this, or a practice owner or something, and they go, shoot, yeah, we should do this. Is it up and running? Can we do it? Where do we send them?
Can I just add that I can definitely relate to your experience of squirming with asking. Before I did the skills training, I would beat around the bush and not feel confident saying the word suicide. I would ask, are you safe? Should we? Are you thinking about harming yourself? When there's real benefits. And we discussed this in the ASIST workshop of the benefits of saying the word itself and asking directly. It's really in the service of the person to ask clearly and directly about suicide.
Is there any sort of a risk, it's a silly thought, but of by asking, let's say somebody, that you initiate that conversation, they go, oh, geez, I just can't do this anymore. And you ask a few follow-up questions and you go, oh, this is maybe a worry. Is there any risk of putting the suicide thought in their head? Yeah, that you're pushing them in the direction towards the leave the barb safe?
Oh, it's such a great question, because I do think that is an inhibiting factor of why we don't ask the question.
Yeah, I wasn't want to talk about it. It's like the boogeyman. You can't say his name because you're going to bring him forth.
Yeah, and so what happens if you ask about the boogeyman? Does he come?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of evidence to show that in most situations, asking about suicide is actually beneficial, and you're not going to induce or exacerbate the thoughts of suicide within a person. If they're in that headspace, they're already thinking about stuff. Yeah. So you're not going to implant that thought by asking them. And there's research to show between adolescent kids who, heck, they're so impressionable.
Impressionable, yes.
It felt weird coming out. Yeah. There's research to show that adolescents who are so impressionable, adults that are already have anxiety or depression, that asking about suicide has actually been beneficial, and it's reduced the risk. Yeah. Okay. If anybody's looking for the research, I've got certainly lots of resources up my sleeve.
Okay.
And I would encourage people, you're far more likely to help someone than to harm them by asking about it.
Yeah. The flip side of the thought process for me is that maybe they're subconsciously mulling it over, but they maybe even haven't acknowledged to themselves that that's where their dark thoughts are going. Is there something in that? And you saying the word, they might go, oh shit, yes. That's not good.
Yeah, exactly. And now you've got it out in the open. You've reduced the stigma.
Yeah.
And you've invited them to work through it together. Yeah. You've signaled to them already. You're someone who they can talk to because you've brought it out into the open.
And I think, again, that's why I want to ask, how do we get trained on this? Because I still think there's a part of the resistance to do that is because I don't necessarily want to take on that responsibility because I don't feel like I have the skills. So once I ask you and you say yes, and then I go, oh shit, now I know this thing and I have to do something about it. And I don't know what to do about it, so I'd rather not ask.
Yeah, so if you've decided from this conversation you want to learn how to do interventions, you want to know how to help someone who's having thoughts of suicide, I would encourage you to contact us. Our emails are probably the best way to contact us, and talk to us about doing ASIST, so an ASIST workshop. So it's a 2-day workshop in person. So there's so many benefits of having it in person, including the practical skill components. And so, reach out to us about doing the workshops. We're in the process of trying to get workshops up and running. It's not easy because the workshops themselves to host are between $10,000 to $15,000. And because we are passionate about making this training really accessible to people in the industry, we're trying to get it as subsidised as possible, so to really decrease any barriers to accessing the training. There's certainly more barriers to coming. I know it's a huge thing to ask a vet to take 2 days off work to come do the training, and we need employers to support their people to come on paid time. And thankfully, we have had that. We have had employers send their staff during work time to attend the workshop, but that's why it's an industry effort. So I would encourage them, if they think, hey, I really want this skill set, I am willing to invest 2 days to learn this with my peers, definitely reach out to the two of us, and maybe at the end of the podcast you'd be happy to share our best contact details.
Oh, check it out now. I will give us your contact details. I will put them in the show description, which means wherever you're listening to this, whether it's Spotify or Apple or anything, scroll down there. I'm going to have an email there that you can copy or paste. If all else fails, contact the VetHerd through Instagram or email or anything, and I'll call one of these guys for you.
The best place to then contact us is Kat, K-A-T, at vetherd.com.au. So again, VetHerd is VETHERD, like a herd of animal.
Or Alena, ALENA, at vetherd.com.au.
Cool.
But I was thinking maybe this is a really great time to explain that we're just two people. Two does not make herd. What we really need is funding. So with Mates in Construction, did you hear that they had the initial study, which was funded by industry? That was $150,000, but we can do a lot cheaper now. That was 20 years ago. They were given $400,000 to start Mates in Construction, whereas us, it's Kat and Alena with our pocket money.
Is there anything in this conversation so far? We'll do our wrap-up questions in a minute, but that I've missed out on around the program, about any resources, anything you want people to know or understand about this topic or about you guys that I've not asked?
I think that just recognizing that we're trying to make a difference, and knowing that we're not specialists within this space. We know stuff, and we're connected with people that are helping us out, which is really lovely, but really emphasizing the community within that we're trying to create. We really need other people's help, because like you said, or what was that, Kat, the beautiful thing you sent me the other day, where you can't have every therapist in a clinic, but we have each other.
The model of networks of safety is just recognizing how much power there is in the people around us to save lives. We often think, when we think of suicide, we often think about going to your GP and your psychologist, which are great options. Absolutely. I've used them and would highly recommend them to people in need. At the same time, we don't have a psychologist on every street corner. We don't have a psychologist in every vet clinic, but we have each other.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're in a bad place, and I've experienced this not nearly on the suicide end of the scale, it becomes harder to proactively seek help. If I'm not good, and now I've got to go and Google and speak to the receptionist. Oh no, our next appointment is 2 months from now. It's just like, fuck, I can't, never mind.
So I'm going to jump in here with the Norvet study again. And she certainly found that vets are low help seekers, hands down. We can certainly see the attitudes towards seeking help, but actually the behaviors, we don't seek help. And only half of her participants that were identified as people that needed to seek help, only half of them did.
And is it partially because we are, by default, by trade and by training, problem solvers? So we go, I could solve this.
Many different, stigma. Yeah. Stigma is one of them. Just the shame and the guilt of feeling, I can't figure this out myself. I'm not going to ask anybody. The caregiver complex of where we always provide care, we don't want to ask for it.
Yeah, and I would absolutely champion anyone in their help-seeking behaviour. It is such an important skill, and I cheer anyone on who does it. at the same time, we can't just depend on people asking for help, like you're saying. Yeah. And so this is where the Living Works training, so even there's shorter courses, shorter than ASIST, but it flips it on its head. It's saying this isn't about help seeking, we're proactively help offering. Can you see with exploring the invitations, it's not that person asking for help, it's us noticing and offering help proactively.
And I think too, just linking other workplaces with the construction industry, that's why it's been so effective in the construction workers, because they're bad help seekers as well. And so models like this, like Kat just said, it's us, it's that person saying, wait a minute, you're not doing well, so I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to explore this. Versus us being like, okay, I'm not doing well. I need to book an appointment. I need to do this. I don't have time.
Yeah, it's actually quite inspirational that it is the construction workers who did this, because this sort of stereotype in my head, at least, and I know I've got a lot of good friends who are construction workers, of the blokey blokes, stiff upper lip, get on with shit, don't be a whingy, but don't be a whingy bastard. So I love that they've built something where they can actually talk openly about their emotions. I loved it. I spent some time on their website. I have to highlight my favorite scientific journal article title ever. The title of the article is, "And you feel like you're suffocating. How the fuck am I going to get out of all of this?"
Brilliant. And I really love that. It's so industry specific. Our mates in construction mentors are always quick to remind us to really consult the vet industry about what they want, what works for them. It's so tempting to do a copy paste from the construction industry's suicide prevention model to make it, exactly the same for the vet industry. But they always remind us to fit it to what our industry needs.
So Kat and I have been having lots of good conversations with our industry and different people to just say, okay, what do you need? And as we grow, considering what people have told us to.
And so we want to follow the principles of co-design. That it's not Kat and Alena designing a suicide intervention program for the industry. Can you imagine how bad that would be?
Oh, geez. No, we need people to tell us what to do.
Yeah, we're all about consulting. We call it herd consultation. Yeah. So consulting the industry, like, your needs best.
Yeah.
We need to listen. So that'll be a big part of our work. It's not just us designing a system, it's us really listening, some deep listening to the people on the ground who are experiencing these things. What do they think will work? What do they think the barriers are? And really taking that on board and co-creating this with them. Again, it's the VetHerd is supposed to be for the industry, by the industry.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So let's wrap it up with the more personal questions again.
Yeah.
So, podcast listening. Other than psychology podcast, Kat, do you have any favorites? No. Are you a podcast listener? Or you can give us your favorite psychology ones as well.
Oh, okay. I was going to say it absolutely is a psychology podcast. And I'm glad you know him as well. It would be Adam Grant's podcast.
So that's all psychology at its best.
If you want to know anything about organizational psychology and how psychology is used to make workplaces awesome, or as he says, make work suck a little less, something like that, I'd encourage you to look up Adam Grant.
Okay, cool. Alena?
Mine's a bit different. Mine is the Huberman Lab. Have you? You like it?
Afterwards we'll talk for ages on the most recent one.
Oh, good. I love that you love that one.
It's neurology.
As well. He's a neurobiologist, and it's all about the body and the brain and how that affects our personality and behaviors. I can listen to that day in, day out.
Any standout episodes for him that you loved?
Oh,
I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, there's been a couple. There's a really cool one about sight, because he's got some ophthalmology background and everything too, but also just the whole waking up routine. Have you explored that?
Daylight exposure.
Yeah.
I try to live by it.
Oh, fabulous. Coffee. Do you have 90 minutes for coffee?
I'm trying.
Okay, all right.
Trying. Depends on how strong I'm feeling it on the day. Does help though. Yeah. It definitely makes a difference.
Good.
So again, what Alena is referring to is it's not a theory, the science behind it. If you have coffee first thing in the morning, it's much more likely that you're going to need multiple coffees to keep you going during the day. Whereas if you delay that first coffee by about 90 minutes, it's a long 90 minutes, but the day goes better.
Yeah. I need to rethink my life. I have it within the first 5 minutes of waking.
It's like the first thing.
I think Atomic Habit touches upon that a little bit, where it's like you wake up, like your habit is to go and turn the coffee machine on and everything. But,
so I'm trying to replace the morning routine with daylight
Yeah.
sit outside for half an
Some
hour and then
exercise,
go,
yeah.
okay.
What about the cold shower? You got to throw in the cold showers.
Kidding it. We'll get there. The pass along question that I introduced a while ago, where I ask a previous guest for a question for the next guest, not knowing who the guest is going to be. So questions for you guys. Oh, I only have the one because there was only one guest. That was from Warwick Vale, who was the AVA president at a stage. And he said, what's stopping you from contributing to the profession in other ways than you currently are? And for you guys, I don't feel if it's a relevant question, because I feel like you are really trying to contribute in other ways. So maybe the question is what was stopping you?
No, I think we want to answer it as what is stopping us.
Okay, go.
Funding. Right?
Money.
Now, we want to do more, but need funding support to do, and the backing of industry from all angles.
Yeah, we've got fabulous resources and connections behind us. It's just a matter of funding.
So if anybody's listening to this and you're in a big business or an industry, or you have control of the purse strings, and this moves you, you know how to email.
And so to just give you some ballpark figures in what you can invest into this movement, it's to hold an ASIST workshop for up to 30 veterinary professionals. And we're talking between $10,000 to $15,000. And that's everything. That's the venue, that's catering, that's training, the work kits, everything. There's another level of training.
That's cost to you, or is that cost to a business? Let's say I have a vet business.
That's what we would charge so that we could cover costs, but also build VetHerd. Yeah. There's training. If a clinic would only like to, or would like to, not only, would like to commit to, say, 4 hours, if they'd be happy to shut their doors for 4 hours and learn some skills. It's not the full ASIST model, but it helps you recognise signs and connect someone to safety. That workshop for up to 30 people is $4,000 to $5,000. And other ways, if you don't have a spare $5,000 in your pocket, other ways that you can support is reaching out to us about participating in the training. You can speak to people that in the profession that might be willing to sponsor it. And employers play such a significant role as well in supporting their staff to go, their staff to attend, because I guess the vision is that we wouldn't want staff to have to do this. It's quite a heavy course. It can be quite emotional 2 days. We envision veterinary staff going on their paid time and being supported by employers to access this life-saving training and not needing to do it on their weekend and then go back to work the next day.
Also, just the funding towards any kind of research and everything. I've got, I think, a little bit of a passion of reading articles and all the work. So, yeah, certainly research is needed and open to having conversations about what that looks like and how we can help. And our pillars are certainly awareness, the education, and it's not just educating our fellow colleagues, but it's also just all the different mental health sector, the government, just spreading the kind word that way, community, and then, research, building some current numbers so we can address it.
All right, last question, the one question. So you have the opportunity. Somebody invites VetHerd to do a talk to all of the veterinary new grads in the world, but as yourselves, not specifically. It doesn't have to be suicide prevention related. What's Kat's one message?
Yeah, my one message is I would talk to them about self-compassion, about being kind to themselves. So if I had 5 minutes, I have a 1 hour presentation that I would condense into 5 minutes. I would talk about self-compassion. I would tell them the 3 components of it. I would talk to them about the difference between tender self-compassion and fierce self-compassion. I would talk to them about the psychological benefits of it and really encourage them on how to live that out in practice. Because as you said, I think vets are so hard on themselves as a general rule, and often to our detriment. I think we often do it for good intentions, but I think it often has dire consequences. And self-compassion has been life-changing for me and my well-being and how I treat myself and others. So I would really want to share that. That's my one thing I would share to them.
Awesome.
Yeah. And kind of building on that is, for me, it's the core values, right? Really knowing who you are and what you show up as. I felt that, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but doing that exercise was life-changing because I can just see the world in a really different place. And I talk to a lot of mentees and they just don't know how they're fitting in. And it's because they actually haven't looked within themselves. And I've had a couple comments and it's nothing that I've created. It's what I've learned and just passed along. And I think that was one of the best career changing things that I did do, is really looking inside myself to see who I was. And
it's a conscious decision to do that. It doesn't just happen.
yeah.
You get stuck in your everyday life, and one day just becomes the next, and the same stupid thoughts go through your head. And to break that pattern, you have to go, okay, I need to spend some time thinking about this and getting to know myself. And make time for it. That's a big deal.
And it's a hard task. When I remember when she first said, okay, do this, I was like, oh, okay, what does this mean?
Well,
so it takes time.
The Huberman episode I was listening to now, which I'll chat to you about afterwards, but it's with David Goggins, the master of self-flagellation. And he describes it as you have to go into the deep, dark cupboards of your subconscious. And there's some scary stuff in there sometimes. You have to unpack them and spring clean.
Yeah, so spring clean, love it. I love purging. I've moved countries so many times that I'm just like...
All right, guys, that is amazing. I love the work that you're doing. I could have just spoken to you the whole time just about pivots, career pivots, and finding your passion. It's almost a two-parter. But thank you so much for what you guys are doing with this and taking it on. I'm so glad your squiggly careers led you to this, because I think it's really important work. And I really hope that there are people listening to this who get straight off the podcast and onto email and say, hand up, how can I help? What can I do? Or here's $50,000.
Either or.
I'm saying,
Thank you. Anyone who wants to reach out to us, absolutely please do. This is meant to be an industry movement where everyone has a role. So big or small, it all matters. And if you don't know what your role is, we would love to chat to you and help explore that with you.
Before you run away, just a little postscript for this episode. Since we recorded this, a couple of things have been happening for the team at VetHerd. They're very excited for an upcoming 2-day workshop in suicide prevention, specifically for the veteran community, sponsored by Flynn's Walk, which will be on the 18th and 19th of July in Brisbane in Queensland. This workshop is going to cover all the stuff that we talk about in this episode, about what you could do as an individual to prevent a suicide. This goes from all the tricky stuff about how to talk to it, how to connect to somebody, how to help them, where to send them for further help. I'm going to put a link for that in the show description. Go and check it out and support these guys in any way that you can.